I'd love to bring up our panelists for our career in energy and climate. We have the Hoagland Group, we have Rosalie Drago and Sydney Leguillo. Not bad, not bad. From the Hoagland Group. Yes. Would you bring the point where they are? Thank you so much. We have Miss Andrea from Vineyard Wind. And have the wonderful Miss Tara McDermott from Empower Solar. And we have my sidekick, Dan Busey from Cushman and Wakefield Sustainability. So we do have a NYSERDA as well, but are they here? We're looking for Jessica Deely and Dan Mulligan. I don't think they're here yet. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We will miss them. All right. Should I do this? Should I stay on this? Okay, so thank you for joining us. This is going to be a really good panel. I'm going to stand in front of. This will be a really good panel for you. You know, you're high school students, you're on the verge of your next steps. Where do I go to college? What do I want to do? So you're going to be talking to some real professionals and a youth ambassador that was you just a year ago that will be able to help you. So I will let them, starting with Tara, just introduce yourself and who you work for.
Does this one work? Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tara McDermott. I'm the Director of Customer Experience and Stakeholder Relations at Empower Solar. We are a clean energy company. We help residential homes and businesses make the switch to clean energy. And I've been there for just over 12 years. So look forward to speaking with you more.
Thank you, Tara. Hey, everybody. I'm Daniel Busey. You might be a little confused why I'm up here and also introing. I work for Renewable Energy Long Island, but I also work for Cushman & Wakefield. It's the third largest commercial real estate broker in the world. And I work on their sustainability team, working with large commercial buildings on things like LEED certification, if you'd ever heard of that. So I always like to say I'm a green building sustainability nerd. So if you have any green building questions, I'm the guy to talk to, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sydney Leguillo. I work for Hoagland Group. It's a construction infrastructure company based in Long Island, family owned. Rosalie will talk a little bit more about what we do. I do government and community affairs. I'm going to pass it over to Rosalie.
Good morning. My name is Rosalie. I am the Vice President of External Affairs and Strategic Engagement. So overseeing marketing, communications, workforce, community development, government affairs. Hoagland does civil infrastructure and energy construction. So we have done all of the above. We did South Fork Wind. We're doing Sunrise Wind with Ørsted. We do battery storage. We do solar. If it's a form of energy, that's part of our major construction. So we can talk about jobs in those categories. Andrew.
It's still morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea Bonilla. I do external affairs for Vineyard Offshore. We are an offshore wind developer with one project under construction for Massachusetts, 800 megawatts, and hoping to have a project in New York.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask a question, and I'd love it if all of you could answer it, because I think this is important for you. I need that mic. Who's in the room? So what was your aha moment that led you to pursue a career in climate or renewable energy? And we'll start with Tara.
Should we stand up? Can everyone see me? I don't know how this works. Oh, okay. Perfect. So this is actually really special for me. I guess there's a youth ambassador that was in your shoes just a year ago, but I am also a Stony Brook alumni, but that was more like 15-ish years ago. So I would say my aha moment when I knew that this was a career that I wanted to pursue was probably my first class that I took here at Stony Brook. It was at SOMAS. I still remember the professor's name. I'm not sure if he's still here, but Kalamazoo Louisa, if you're out there. But really a big moment for me, just learning about, everything that the university does and how interconnected it is to the local environment, lifelong Long Islander, and something that I really cared about. So, taking my first few classes in marine sciences and geology really opened my eyes to what was out there, everything that had to be done. And I decided from that moment, my degree was sociology, but I picked up an environmental studies minor and kind of just made my own path, took an environmental sociology internship. And, that was my path from there. So that was kind of my one moment that set the course.
Awesome. Yeah. Thinking back to it, I was your age, and no shame at all. I was mom's boy and still am. And mom recommended, she said, take a look into this field, because the truth is it's not going anywhere. And the reality is it's probably only going to get worse. So, we're going to need people in this field, to tackle these problems. And so right before I went to college, I went to the University of Vermont, got a degree in environmental science. I realized as I was there, because their buildings are beautiful and all filled with, energy efficiency measures and biophilic design, that it was a field that was really interesting to me. As humans, we spend 90% of our lives indoors. And I say as humans, but as United States citizens, we spend 90% of our lives indoors. So our indoor environment is crucial to our happiness, our health, and it is just about 40% of all carbon emissions are building operations. So huge piece both for the planet and for our individual lives.
So my experience with becoming interested in the field and climate change was I took my first econ class, economics, in college, and the professor started talking about a low carbon economy. And I was always really interested in climate change and what we can do, but I really just felt like maybe something you do on the side or as like an activist. I didn't realize how intrinsic it was across all industries. So when you start talking about a low carbon economy, you realize it has to do with infrastructure, it has to do with marketing, with businesses, with consumers. It touches literally every aspect. The economy in general touches every aspect of what we do. So I guess looping in climate change with that and thinking about how to limit your emissions in every facet of the economy, that kind of really piqued my interest, and just started looking more into sustainable development. I really focused my research in college on sustainable development and learning more about climate jobs in climate. And yeah, that was my experience.
I didn't have an aha moment technically about renewable energy. I've had a 30+ year commitment to understanding how business and community can work together to thrive. And just in the past decade of my experience working with unions, because we're a union construction company, just started to realize that every job we were looking at, right, like access to careers with good wages and economically advancing one's position has been important to me. And in the past decade of my work, energy has been the space where all those opportunities were for people to really, wherever they were, whether they were college first or career first, which I was, we're able to find an amazing, good paying career that also contributed to a better world. So it wasn't really a particular aha moment. It just happens to be one of the best industries to advance in and make a difference at the same time.
Does this work? Okay. So I also have only been in renewable energy for about 4 years. And I didn't know how I would end up here, but I did. When I was in college, I am from Ecuador. And when I was in college, I lived with an indigenous tribe in the Amazon for a week. And part of that was learning how contaminated the Amazon is from oil extraction. Communities have cancer rates up to 70-80% in some instances because they bathe and cook and clean and use water that is contaminated by oil spills. So that was a pretty big moment in my mind. It was at that point, it was between my junior and senior year of college, so I wasn't in a place to change my major or kind of career path, but I was already on track to do international relations and Latin American studies. And eventually when I graduated, I started doing a lot of community work, community-centered work, tying in with real estate development, revitalization, government affairs, and eventually I also ended up at WDI with unions, and that's what got me here. Ultimately, kind of like Rosalie said, right, we're all living in this place that we've seen has some pretty drastic effects from climate change. And I think we all need to focus on not just how do we shift from that, but also ensure that we create vibrant communities socially and economically for the future.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited. We have a guest, Matt Arisich, and it's so nice to see you on our careers panel. This is going to be a very, very important panelist when it comes to union jobs, where not everybody needs to take the same path. But Matt, could you introduce yourself and who you work with?
My name is Matthew Arisich. I'm the president of a small group of construction workers, about 65,000 of us. We run through Nassau and Suffolk counties, and we do every kind of trade that's out there. It doesn't matter if it's energy, it doesn't matter if it's general construction, if it's wastewater treatment plants, hospitals, blood banks, you name it, we do it. So.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you the same question we just asked the rest of the panelists. And what was your aha moment that led you to pursue a career in climate or renewable energy?
I'm going to stand so that you can see me. It's a little easier. What was my aha moment? I have 3 generations in this industry. I watched my father do it, and his father. So that's what the moment was. I didn't get my career here. I started a different direction. I was actually a commercial diver. I used to rebuild Amtrak train trestle bridges. However, from there, I transitioned to work into water, which was with the United States Geological Survey. Following that, I worked for the United States Navy. I then came into the trades. Like I said, 3 generations, spans 106 years, okay? That's an important thing to know. Now, one of the things I want to tell you is I've been very fortunate in my life. When I say that, I don't know what it's like to suffer. I say that, and I don't mean to be condescending. The answer is I've always had a career. I've always had health care, always had a retirement, always had the security of a job. And the most important thing is I always knew that I was safe on that project. These are the things that make it so that each particular person who looks for a career is actually the one who benefits from it. And when you're saying about energy, I was actually what's called a heat and frost insulator, which is, as some people say, asbestos workers. I worked in the utility plants. That's where the majority of my time was. And without those people, you wouldn't have electricity today.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask Andrea a specific question, since offshore wind has been a topic of conversation this afternoon. What's the coolest technology advancement you've seen in offshore wind that most people don't know about?
So I don't know that I've been in offshore wind long enough to know how much it's changed, but I think I have 2 points. So Ørsted, which is a Danish company, they kind of kickstarted offshore wind many, many decades ago in Europe. 2 years ago, they already decommissioned their first offshore wind farm, right? So 2 years ago, we started construction on our first offshore wind farm. 2 years ago, they also decommissioned their first one, which means that it was already up and running for 30 and plus years. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing that I like to point out is usually when you think about offshore wind farms, most of us don't get to see them because they're so far out in the water, especially here. And they are these massive turbines, right? And we're like, how big? 13 megawatts. What does that mean? So right now, one of the turbines that we are installing for our Vineyard Wind project, one rotation of that turbine can power one home for an entire day. Right? So that's just one turn. So think about all the homes we have here and all the generation we need, and the ability for offshore wind to scale for what we need is really huge.
Thank you. So this question is for Sydney. Sydney, you can connect with this audience probably better than any of us, being that you recently are a college grad. Could you tell the students any advice on next steps once they graduate, if they wanted to take a career in renewable energy and climate?
Right. I'd always say, like, take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to you. I mean, even in high school and especially in college, there are constantly people coming and presenting opportunities to you. Maddie actually had come to my college and I heard him speak when I had an internship, and you were talking about clean energy jobs. And it's about going up to people afterwards, speaking with them, getting information, letting them know your name and what you're interested in. And like those small connections, even if every time it doesn't work, like one of them will. And that's, you know, building your network. And on Long Island, it's really, really strong. Other than that, I mean, and then once you're in a position and have an opportunity, like it's so great to just say yes to things. Rosalie and I talk about that a lot. Like it's okay to have a little bit of fear. Like it shows that you have courage and that you can get past things and you're learning a skill. Even if you don't do your absolute best, you took the chance and tried. And that really goes a long way because nobody here, I mean, what I've learned from people who have been in the industry a lot longer than I have is like, they got good at what they do because they kept on trying. It's not that they were great at it from the start. You just have to continue to practice and like not be scared to practice and put yourself out there.
Excellent, thank you. And this is a great transition question to all of you. What's the most unexpected skill that's been valuable in your climate career that students might not think to develop? And I will start with Rosalie.
We were just talking about that in the hall. So I've been working since I'm 14 and my son's 15 and he told me I'm robbing him of his childhood by sending him to work. But right, I think Adrian might have said this earlier, part of advocacy and even in the jobs we have in external affairs and government relations is going out and talking to people in the public and trying to educate with them about what we're doing or deal with folks who are upset and angry about what we're doing. And I have to say that the jobs that I had in the beginning of my career, waiting tables, pizza parlor, grocery clerk, right, is where I constantly had to deal with different kinds of customers. Some people were angry, some people were happy, some people were impatient. And honestly, that's the number one skill you're going to need, especially if you want to be in a senior position in a company, right? I mean, I think everyone's like, half the people are looking at their phones. It's like, but I was at an event really recently. I'm like, welders in our company can make $200,000. Everyone's like, what? So, whether you're in a C-suite position or you're a trade position, being able to work with people, being able to communicate with a variety of people, being able to handle adversity, right? Someone being angry, someone being, right? Specifically the negative ones, right? Getting proficient at that earlier on, conflict resolution, working with people you may not like, that's what will either prevent you or advance you in your career. So I would say those were critical skills to work on now so that it comes second nature. People will say to me like, oh, you're so calm in a crisis. It's like, well, because I've been, practicing to your point, sitting a long time. So I think this work requires advocacy and going out and talking in communities, we're about to do that are not always happy about what you have to say. And the more you can put yourself in slightly uncomfortable positions and practice being uncomfortable and having uncomfortable conversations anyway, the better you're going to advance no matter what you do for a living.
I love that. Practice makes perfect, right? You want to Tara?
Yeah, I was going to say something pretty similar, actually. Just on the advocacy note, just advocating for yourself is probably one of the biggest things, and public speaking. So when I was in college, everyone had to take a public speaking course. I wanted to throw up, hated it, did not want to do it, wanted to throw myself on a group project instead, whatever it was. My first job, it was an internship. We had to do cold calling. I was terrified to speak in front of anyone. Like it was a one-on-one phone call, but I didn't want anyone else to hear me. So after I got over that fear and learned how, to translate what I cared about, which was the environment, which for many of you, hopefully that's something that you care about. If you care about it and you put that first, then you can truly advocate for that and then advocate for yourself as well. So I would say, that's one of the biggest things is just the advocacy for what you care about. Like we said, networking and putting yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable, and making those connections because you never know where something will take you.
Then I'll add to that. This is your group right here. There's a lot of internship opportunities that might be available to you. So take advantage of today too. You're with some really good people. Okay, Dan.
I think we all touch on it a little bit so far. I would say would be open to any and all experiences, even the jobs you might not want to take. My first job right out of college was door-to-door solar salesman. After that was a water efficiency appliance installer. Following that was working for a nonprofit. And then following that, you get into the job, where you kind of feel your groove and you settle. But having that experience, having that knowledge across various different industries makes it really impactful when you get into a place where you find your groove, because you're able to draw from past experiences and past knowledge bases that others around you don't have. So yeah, be open to the crappy jobs. They're the ones that teach you the most.
Maddie.
So once again, I'm going to stand because it's important. The most important thing you do is use the God's gifts they gave you, which is your ears and your mouth in the same ratio you have. Listen twice as hard and speak half the time. The reason is that's where you start to learn. In addition to that, the most important piece you can do to impress upon somebody is show interest. And that's something that goes a long way because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I can tell you this, the mere fact that there's so many women in this audience is actually so impressive to me, and I'll tell you why. See, going back to in the beginning where I was, many of the people that came into my local were just like Dan, you know, white guy, son, nephew, friend. We had to change that with the idea we wanted to become more inclusive of the idea of everybody deserves an opportunity. So instead of having those 12 or 13 apprentices, we took in 40. We took in another 40, and then we took in 38. That's not the impressive part. The impressive part is that they were 77% minority, and there were 7 women in those classes. That shows that not only do we have an interest, but it's working in your best interest to make sure that you work with people you live with, local jobs for local people.
Thank you. And Miss Andrea.
I usually always recommend people take a public communications class because I think that was the most helpful to me. But, I think that's something that's been echoed here. The other thing is, don't be afraid to do something and then you don't like it and decide that's not what you want to do. Because it's very easy to be focused and say, okay, this is what I like, this is what I like, this is what I want to do. But if you don't try things and you don't figure out what you don't like, then you can't figure out what you really do like. So sometimes some things might be like, you're like, I don't know. And then you try it and you're like, that's definitely not for me. And now you know, right? So it's also valuable not just to know what you like, but also what you don't like, because that's going to shape how you make decisions for your future.
I'm going to chime in here. As a young person who loves social media and being on my phone, it is such a valuable skill to be able to discern information and to have your own voice when it comes to any industry that you're in, whether it's like a real technical skill, whether it's being really good at writing and being able to have your voice and discern good writing, or if you're doing engineering, anything that you're doing, you're going to have to talk to people and have real relationships. But the information that you're gathering has to come from good sources. I mean, Adrian spoke about this before, but like there's just so much information and such an abundance of information from various sources now, and especially with AI, it's extremely helpful and it can do a lot for us. But at the same time, just make sure you're honing in on like personal skills and just don't completely rely on technology to make decisions or tell you the facts. Sources are good.
Okay, this question is an excellent question, and I just want to say it before we get too far into time. To all of you again, I'm going to start with Maddie. If you could go back and tell your high school self one thing, what would it be?
I have given presentations to groups bigger than this, and they're adults. The first question I ask is, how many people are doing what they thought they'd be doing out of high school? I did one in Nassau County at the Tiller Center. And the only one who answered was Congressman Tom Suozzi. Says, I am. And I said, no, you want to be president, but I hope you get there. The point is that I think more than anything, Sydney said it best. You're going to try something. Just follow through until it gets to a point where you say, I don't want to do this. Finish out whatever your task is, and then move on to something else. That's the most important piece. I didn't start in this field. I retired at 57 years old. I didn't think I'd be here. I've lived a very charmed life. But the idea is that every one of you have an opportunity to do exactly the same through an industry that is growing, regardless of what you've seen and cancellation of the offshore wind with this administration. I could tell you this. With the first wind farm, which is only 12 turbines, and the next, which is 84, and they're not even in the water yet. We've created 3 million man-hours already, and we'll be at 5.5 to 6 million man-hours completing that project. And currently, there's over 800 people working, and these are numbers as of January. So think about what you'd want to do. It's not necessarily that you go out in the water. It's not necessarily that you're on shore. It may be that you're in the supply side. There's so many different pieces to this, and that's what's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself?
So I usually like to tell people that even though we're adults, I say that as adults because none of us know everything, and we've all gotten here by a lot of trial and error. And I say that as very much as an overachiever in high school. And, you think that if you don't do well on a test and it's not going to be okay. And trust me, it's going to be okay. So don't put, it's good to be driven, but don't drive yourself crazy with pressure because life will throw challenges at you every single day. And what you have to figure out is how to prioritize those and how to keep going to the next day, because it's always going to be a little hard, but there's also always really great things happening. And so you just have to acknowledge that you're just going to figure it out one day at a time. So we might be adults and have cool titles, but we didn't get there just, because we know everything all at once. We figure it out every day.
I always say the line from point A to point B is not always a straight line, right? It could go all over the place. Right. And we have a wonderful panelist joining us. You'd like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness. I'm coming from Brooklyn, where I'm currently fostering a puppy who was sick all morning. So I'm a little late. But my name is Jess Deely. I'm a senior advisor on NYSERDA's offshore wind team. NYSERDA is the state's clean energy authority, and I see a colleague of mine over there who's on our transmission team. And what I do on our offshore wind team is essentially work with our partners in labor. I make sure disadvantaged communities are reaping the benefits from offshore wind developments, that jobs are going to New Yorkers like yourselves, that you're aware of what's available. And I help the state procure large-scale offshore wind projects so that we can keep the lights on at an affordable rate.
Thank you so much. Keep the mic. Sure. I have a question for you. If you could go back and tell your high school self one thing, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. Are you all high school students? Yeah? College? Middle school? Oh, gosh. I have no idea what I would tell her. I'm from the South, and I grew up as a Navy brat, and I had no idea what my passions were at the time. Because my dad was a pilot, I was very into the weather, and I was actually a broadcast meteorologist for a little bit before I went back to grad school to go into the career I am in now. And so I probably would have just told her to don't be afraid of being nerdy and being passionate about your passions and loud about them. It seems, uncool sometimes to be into the STEM stuff or to be really into something, which I am, and I tend to be about certain hobbies or topics, especially climate, meteorology, and energy. And if anybody wants to talk to me about those things, I'll talk to you forever about them. So I would tell her to not, be shy about them and to talk to people about them, because the more you talk to folks about what you're interested in, the more you can find careers and life plans that match with that.
Thank you. Tara.
Yeah, so a lot of you, if you're middle school, high school, you're probably starting to join some extracurricular activities. There's a big emphasis on being in band or being in this club or being in that sport. And I just want to say there's actually a very specific reason for that. So when you get out of college or when you're in college and you start working in your professional life, you could work a 9 to 5 regular every day, but you're probably going to stay there if you don't do extracurricular outside of that. So I know many people on this panel here, we've run into each other at many things, whether it's an 8 a.m. Long Island Association meeting about the Energy Committee or 7 p.m. meeting every Thursday, Andrea and I were working together on a young professionals organization, back when we were in our 20s. So the extracurricular, you're starting that now, but it's really important to continue that. Just be a hand raiser, participate, find things that you're interested in and continue them. Because again, you never know which opportunity is going to lead you on your next path, because many of you will not pick your career from day one and be that career forever. Maybe if you're going to be a nurse or something very specific, sure. But a lot of us, our paths waver and we make it over time. Makes it interesting and fun.
Awesome, Dana.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. You asked this question, and I probably should have had a better climate focused answer prepared. But I'll be honest, I think when I was thinking of this response, it was like, put your life savings in Bitcoin. But a climate focused answer or just a life advice answer would be go explore the world. In high school, I think I was more afraid of the world than I am now. It wasn't until college and after college that I got out of Long Island. And my own personal fun fact I like to say is I've been to almost 50 countries. And it's something that I encourage out of all of you to go visit places outside of your comfort zone, outside of Long Island, out in New York, outside of the United States. I think outside influence give the impression that the world is a scarier, more dangerous place than it really is. And I can't tell you how much I disagree with that perspective, that I have been greeted with nothing but kindness and awesome opportunity in almost everywhere I've ever been. So my recommendation is pop the bubble, get off Long Island, at least for a little bit. Come on back, we need young people, but go explore for a little bit.
Fabulous. And Rosalie.
If I was going to talk to my high school self, I would say, one, it's okay to be afraid. Don't let it stop you. I think even as an adult, you think, oh, everybody's got it together. I remember going to one of those networking events at night and sitting in my car and going, oh God, like I've been with people all day. There's 400 people at this event. I'm going to freak out. And I looked in the car next to me. It was one of my colleagues. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like freaking out that we have to go in there and talk to 400 people. And I looked to the left and it was somebody else. I'm like, oh, not just me. So, being afraid is okay. Turn it into curiosity, right? It's a real curiosity is your best tool, right? Why is this person different from me? To your point, right? Why are they different? What's different about their upbringing? This is a new opportunity. I'm scared. What is it about it that I'm worried about? Oh, whether I can speak or whether I know what to wear, or, right? You just turn that fear into curiosity. But it's normal and it shouldn't stand in your way.
Awesome, thank you. And how about Sydney? And then we'll open it up to a Q&A in the audience.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I think
It's only 5 minutes ago.
yeah.
You're right. Yes. This might be good.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I keep on thinking about like socially things will come and go. It's so important to like stick to what you're passionate about. Of course, have your friends, but also like explore your curiosity. And if it's okay if other people aren't into it, that's what makes you you, and that's what makes you unique. Also embrace adversity. I used to get so upset. It took me like a little bit longer to do work sometimes. Things were just hard academically. I liked challenging myself, but then I was always so frustrated, like, why is this so hard? And I would get really upset and like feel like maybe it wasn't as hard for other people. But it's like embrace the adversity. Because it's that hard for you, you're going to be like that much better at it. You just learn that much more of a skill. Like that struggle that you're having within yourself is making you a stronger person. So just keep that in the back of your head.
Thank you. So do we have questions? I don't want to hog up all the time. This is an opportunity. You have some amazing partnerships here. Are there any questions from the audience? Before I take anything.
That would probably be my advice for high school self. Ask questions. Ask so many questions, even if it's like just challenge yourself to just think the whole time, like, what is my question going to be? What I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to ask that question. So what's question?
Can I add one more thing? Over at our table, we have two of our team members. We have Carol Ann and we have Desiree. Desiree is a drone pilot, a CAD and 3D modeling expert. Like in this renewable space, you can do anything. So technology. Carol Ann is our events person and sponsorship person. So there's STEM fields, there's construction fields, there's technology fields, like please go over and talk to everyone at all the tables. Right, and ask them about their jobs, because that's where you're going to really learn about your passion.
Thank you. And before we close, I really want to discuss briefly the union opportunities that exist. Not everybody is college focused, or maybe you change your mind, or maybe you think different directions. So if you could just talk about opportunities for high schoolers. I know 18 is a pretty important age for union and apprenticeships, but possible next steps for these folks if they want to get into some sort of union job. Maddie or Rosie?
It's Maddie, but can I just say one thing? I really want to say that it should never be a choice. You're either college or not college, right? Because you can go back and forth at any time. So it took me 11 years to get my undergrad because I was working full time, making good money, and I had to pay for my own college. And then I got my graduate degree at 40, and I was the first female commissioner of labor, right? Like when I was younger, the message was, if you don't go to college, you're going to fail. And that's not true, because I was able to do both those things, but I just learned more by working in the beginning. And there are many people, as Maddie will talk to you about, these phenomenal union jobs. There are many people who have a degree that are in the union. There are many people who went to the union at a high school and then get a degree later. So it isn't or, it's an and you can go back and forth between your career. So I would just say that, right? You could earn the same way over 6-figure salary, whether you're in the union or out of the union, if that's important to you, but just don't feel like you have to, if you choose one path, that you've been denied the other path, because that's not the case. Oh, you Matt.
So if anybody asks you if you want to get into a union and they say, oh, it's too tough, it's too hard to get in, they'll never take me, etc. I took over this group 7 years ago. We had 60,000 people. In that time frame, I've grown it by 5,000 members. We are also making sure that we have the ability to go into diverse communities and hire more women, because that's the path to where we're supposed to be, because it's representative of what Long Island's all about. It's not all about, white guys, digging holes and putting up buildings. It's about everybody working together. It's about being the team. So how do you get there? There's a program called Opportunities Long Island. And one of the things is we're looking for a basis to make sure that we get real opportunities for men and women of color as well. But the idea is we want to expand it and make it even better. So we don't get many women in the classes, and I don't know why. I guess it's because there's this misnomer that it's too hard to do the work, and that's absolute nonsense. Everybody has a skill set, and everybody can go ahead and engage to any of them. I have 36 affiliates. There are 23 different trades that are out there. Ironworkers, electricians, plumbers, insulators, carpenters. There are tile setters. You name it, it's out there. And those opportunities are there for you, because you should have those jobs. I'm going to do a little quick math and say, this is the reason why we do this. What we do is we noticed that in Huntington, we did a pre-apprentice program the first time. There were 19 people who came into the trades. If they made the least amount of money in the trades, that would be $75 an hour for a total package. I'm going to do some math. It's 19 times 75 times 40 times 48. 19 people, $75 an hour, 40 hours a week, and 48 weeks a year. Does anybody have an idea how much money that is? That's $2.7 million. If they never got another raise in 30 years, that comes out to $82 million that 19 people contributed to your local economy. I have 65,000 members. Now you know why we're the barometer for the economy. So when we're busy, that means the economy is working. And we want you to be those people who are working. We want you to be those leaders, the next leaders, because guys like me are going to go. I have more than 45 years in this industry. I didn't think I'd do that long. So we're looking for new faces, new attitudes, new skill sets, smarter brains is what it is. Serious. The technology that you guys possess at this point far exceeds your typical tradesmen and tradeswomen. Take advantage of it. Be the next leaders for tomorrow.
And just to give you an idea of the career pathway to answer your question, Melissa, is like on offshore wind, right? Howland Group worked with union labor, right? We dug an 18-mile trench to pull the cable through from offshore, right? Operating engineers operate the yellow iron machinery. We have, laborers, what else? Help me out here. Get your thing there. Electricians, right? So, and then we built the power converter station, right? That's got, same thing. You had to have people put up the steel, put up the walls. These are each very distinct trades with distinct skills. And then in our company, Hogland Group, you come in, we're hiring from the union hall, they're doing work on these projects, but then they hit a certain point in their career where now you're a project manager or an engineer or, right, if you don't want to stay in the union. So just you come in as an apprentice, you learn the trade, you get good at that trade. You could either wind up as the next head of the building trades like Maddie, or you could wind up working for a company like ours and, overseeing a major project.
Thank you so much.